let's call the October 18th, sorry, wrong, that was the minutes. The November 6th, 2023 Plan Commission to order. Roll call, please.
Drivers excused. Washburn.
Here.
Bhatia.
Here.
Bosanowski.
Here.
Meyer. Also excused.
Also
Sorry.
excused, yep.
Rissler.
Here.
Van Beckham.
Here.
Wait. There we go.
Here. I'm still here.
And we're glad you made it, Tom. So the next item on the agenda would be the meeting minutes from October 28th. Now, at that meeting, Ram and I were both out of the office. We were out of the meeting. We were at the convention. So we'll have to recuse ourselves, but so that would mean Tosh, Tom, or Frank, you'll need to make a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right.
Yeah. It's for the record, I thought I heard you saying October 28th, it's October 18th.
He did. It's the 18th.
Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe it's my hearing.
No, it's not.
When I first called the meeting to order, I called the October 18th meeting to order. So
Okay, so
I
there was an October
we're all
18th
good.
somewhere.
We are here today on November 6th, and we're approving the October 18th.
I like that.
Sam will fix it.
And
I'll fix it in post.
I
Yeah.
know, in that regard, we have a motion by Mr. Rissler and a second by both Tosh and Mr. Van Beckham. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We have no old business to attend to. Under new business, Sam, would you walk us through 4217 County Trunk Highway H Certified Survey Map CSM 2313?
Sure thing. So this first application, the village staff applied to consolidate 6 parcels in the western half of TID 5 Area 3. So this is directly on the other side of the train tracks from where Microsoft's site plan that you approved earlier this year exists. The application follows the land use element of the multi-jurisdictional comp plan, which recommends business for the subject properties. The master bike plan recommends a bicycle path along Braun Road and County Trunk Highway H. The village and county installed both pathways when they recently rebuilt both roadways. Park and open space for the Village of Mount Pleasant 2050 lists the area as a priority protection area under the Pike River Watershed Plan. This designation encourages restored green spaces, ecologically friendly stormwater ponds, and other initiatives that proactively reduce pollutant loads in Lampera Creek, which drains to the Pike River. In terms of subdivisions, this application complies with all of the land division requirements, and the map meets the C4 district lot regulations. For a fiscal note, the total market value for the land is about $38 million. The estimated new development market value for this, because it doesn't relate to any specific development application, we're just consolidating all the village-owned parcels out there. We backed into a value that we would need to kind of hit the standard benchmarks that we set for the fiscal analysis sheet. So if there is $240 million worth of development across these 250-ish acres of land, we will hit a total revenue to cost ratio of 10 to 1. 1.1 is net positive, and a private to public ratio greater than 40 to 1. So essentially this would pay all of its obligations and then some at a $240 million total value for those parcels. As a note for that, again, the project does not relate to any specific development proposal, therefore the numbers show minimum target numbers for future development. Also, the village does not maintain County Trunk Highway H nor County Line Road, but we did include those in the projections. As always, when we don't maintain the adjacent roadways, we still like to think about the cost to maintain those public facilities, purely due to the fact that we think more valuable development should kind of be on those greater, corridors and access areas. So if it's an arterial street, the idea is it's going to have probably a higher value, higher density development than if it's on like a local interior street. In terms of conditions, we don't recommend any conditions for approval, and with that, we recommend approval of the CSM.
All right, thank you, Sam. I know I had looked at my packet earlier last week and had a couple of questions for Sam. Again, these are village-owned properties, and we're simply consolidating them, and we own them, so we have the statutory right to go ahead and review and approve the land division.
Correct.
Commissioners, anyone have any questions on this item? Also, there's a lot of notes on the certified survey map that I'm sure Frank saw as well. And there's a lot of future easement potential dedication as well. So they're reserving some areas in anticipation of ATC, doing some, widening it. There's already a lot of easements already on it. So the certified survey map is setting itself up for the village's properties to be developed in the future.
Yeah, none of those easements should be a surprise. On some of Microsoft's site plans for 3B on the other side of the tracks, there are some smaller substations that they need to serve the data centers on that side of the tracks. So those future ATC easements are purely the stepped down power to take it across the tracks to serve locally that the Microsoft data center development on the other side.
And the stormwater easements as well to come when those facilities are built or needed.
Correct.
Yeah. All right.
I just have a question. Sam, who owns the 4 parcels immediately to the east as well as to the west of the subject property?
So what you're looking at there, those aren't parcels, those are actually
Sections, okay.
lines, because it's such a big sheet of property. They call them out on the face of it. But Microsoft owns everything on the east side of the property across the track, so it's really the railroad owns the property, and then it's
Okay.
the Microsoft on the east. The cutout kind of tooth you see there, that's the ATC major substation, so they own that property. And then to the west is everything is owned by Foxconn on the other side of County Trunk Highway H.
All right, thanks.
And then to the south is Summers, so Kenosha County.
Yes, Sam, can you elaborate a little bit more? You list some costs for the estimated public road replacement cost. So what road, because are we going to be, in these parcel, are we going to be replacing some road, building some roads, or what? Because we're just consolidating them, right?
No, they're just projections
Projection.
that we use for development purposes. So the road replacement cost is really, in 2023, we averaged about $4 million a mile for a brand new local roadway. And then what we do is we accelerate that for collector and arterial streets. So a collector is 80 feet instead of 66 feet of right-of-way, so that we multiply 4 million by 1.3. And an arterial is generally about 120 feet wide, and so we multiply it by 2, so about $8 million a mile. So we take those amounts into account and say this, roadway in 40 years would cost, it would cost about $7 million for us to repave the roadway. Only the half that fronts the east side, because obviously a roadway is serving 2 separate sides. So the total road replacement cost would be probably somewhere in the $14 million range, but this property would only be subject to pay for half, so we said $7 million. And then we accelerate that for using historical figures on how fast the road replacement costs go up, and we average that over 5-year increments over time. So our guess is, using 5-year averages, that in 40 years, those roads will cost, instead of $7 million, about $24 million to replace.
Just to chime in real quick on why it's good, even though they're county roads and some state roads, because TID 5 is a village and county kind of enterprise, it probably makes a lot of sense to kind of keep cognizant of how much those roads cost, because it'll ultimately probably go on to the TID 5 expenditures, like they did when they were constructed in the first place.
Sure, thank you.
So, just long-term projections, we're trying to continuously roll those out and fine-tune them over time. So you'll see us update those for 2024 when we get bid numbers in and things like that.
Yeah, I think those numbers are very important. Again, your point that you made initially was that we don't have to maintain them at all right now. So you're projecting on what if, if that were to occur. But I think that makes it very easy, not easy. It helps us in terms of particularly long-range planning and the budgeting process when you look at the cost of, the cost per mile today is really unbelievable.
It certainly is. And also, it's not to say like that isn't, like we're going to deny every application that comes in. We've also talked about this before. There are nonprofit uses or educational uses that don't pay taxes but might provide some value, or other things over time that the different village boards might want to incentivize. So it's just a good benchmark for us to look at costs and expenditures is all. It's just another kind of arrow in your quiver of decision making.
All right, any other questions then from the commissioners? If we have no other questions, I'd be looking for a motion on the item.
I move to recommend approval of the 4217 CTH H Certified Survey Map, CSM-23-13.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Rizzler and a second by Trustee Boccia to approve the certified survey map. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, Sam, if you would like to walk us through ordinance 25-2023 for 12910 County Line Road zoning map amendment, ZMA-23-9.
The village staff applied to amend the zoning map for approximately 370 acres. The lands lie south of Durand Avenue, north of County Line Road, and predominantly west of Wisconn Valley Way. The staff applied to amend the map from Business Park, which is C4 under the new zoning district guidelines, to C3. This change will support a broader range of commercial building types along the southeast frontage road, allow upper story residential uses within those areas, and preserve the ability for artisan and limited manufacturing uses to comply with state law regarding industrial tax incremental districts. This application does not concern any specific development. It seeks to apply the proposed, proposed, recently approved, updated commercial zoning districts best. So what you have in front of you follows the business designation from the land use element of the multi-jurisdictional comp plan. The village no longer has a business park zoning district. However, the corresponding C3 district allows both commercial and industrial development, similar to the BP district, which the village initially adopted in the early 90s. The village does not have an adopted plan for local planning area 13. Village Mount Pleasant Master Bicycle Plan recommends a village bicycle pathway along County Trunk Highway KR, which Racine County and the Wisconsin Department of Transportation installed when they reconstructed County Trunk KR a few years ago. The Parks and Open Space Plan recommends protecting some environmental corridors identified in the southwest corner of the tax parcels and surrounding the Des Plaines River watershed. The C3 district accommodates high-intensity commercial, moderate-intensity manufacturing, and upper-story residential uses. The village intends the C3 district to support these regional uses concentrated with large nodes and along regional commercial corridors, which is why we thought that applied to this specific area. In terms of overlay districts, there are none here proposed. There's no other specific use types to guard against in terms of specific proposals, but if you can go to the next slide, please. You can see maybe one more. There we go. Some of the permitted uses across the C3 districts. So, for example, this would not allow things like self-storage, correct? No, this would permit self-storage.
Okay, so C3 is the second column. C4, what it currently is the first column. The first page is mostly residential type businesses, as well as convenient cash, hotel, motel. And the second one is a little bit more commercial. It'll be adding food and alcohol service. Self-service storage is not allowed where it was allowed and before. Same thing with, that'd be indoor and outdoor sort of freight warehouse movement. And then commercial vehicle repair, maintenance, sales and rental, truck stop, and vehicle body shops are either downgraded from permitted use to conditional, or in case of truck stop is not permitted. General manufacturing is not permitted in C3, but it is in C4, and as well as outdoor warehousing, wholesaling, and freight movement is not permitted in C3, but it was in C4. So, and this is also kind of a little bit different just because the C4 as it currently is not exactly what you were used to anyway. The C4 as it currently is would be a mishmash of the business park district and the M2 industrial district. So sorry if that's confusing, but it kind of gives you a sense of what uses are allowed and are not allowed in comparison to these two things. Every other aspect of this is the same. These two districts are the same.
So, thank you, Robin.
You're welcome.
That makes a lot of sense. So, in large part, the idea is we're removing some of the the ability for more intense industrial uses to be developed in these areas between Wisconsin Valley and the frontage road, but allowing a lot more commercial uses to be permitted in those areas, with still some limited industrial and commercial uses. So. That's the idea, just kind of best applying our new zoning districts to pretty broad areas that we expect will develop sooner or later. In terms of fiscal impact, the application does not contain any specific development proposals. The village is not responsible for repaving the East Frontage Road 11, Wisconsin Valley Way, which is State Trunk Highway 311, or County Trunk Highway KR, which deflates the village maintenance obligations for the subject areas compared to areas adjacent to locally controlled roadways. However, like the other application, our typical fiscal analysis disregards roadway ownership, assuming the village should encourage more value development along higher trafficked roads. The village should target a post-development value of approximately $4 million an acre using arterial road replacement costs for all the roadways surrounding the subject areas. For additional considerations, we will be back to you in probably the next 6 months or so for a separate comprehensive plan amendment to address the business park designation in the comp plan. That's kind of duplicative at this point. We anticipate that'll change to something like a high-intensity mixed-use designation instead, which better describes what we'd expect to see out there instead of just kind of a blanket business designation. With that, we recommend approval of Ordinance 25-2023.
All right, thank you, Sam. I see this as kind of a way for us to clean up the uses that are along our gateway of 94. In other words, we don't want concrete plants right up on the highway. We want to make sure that it has some continuity and a nice appealing look to it and that we can manage it that way.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that this still does allow some things that you'd expect to see along a highway that we would like to keep out of a general industrial park. So it's not just that we're trying to be more restrictive on the industrial side. It is, want to emphasize that we're also trying to be more permissive on the commercial side because we don't want the zoning to fight too hard against the open market.
Well,
and so by allowing some of those uses, hopefully those lands will develop in a manner that is agreeable to everyone, but also kind of makes sense for the general real estate market.
Well, I think that's important, providing potential housing, high-rise housing, higher density housing. As the industrial parks over there develop, we're going to need that housing is going to become very precious. I see that because this is a zoning map amendment, there were a lot of notices posted, a Class 2 notice. You mailed public hearing notices and sent the sign notice language to the applicant for postings, so all per the proper ordinance. The other thing that you and I had talked about, we're doing so many map amendments on a regular basis now as we've updated the zoning code and continue to work with the zoning code updates and finding these pocket areas. One of the things that I'm always concerned about is how fast are the maps getting updated, so that if someone wanting to come into town with a project is going through our website, which that's the first place they go. And the good news is that Sam and Robin have the zoning map changes updated within a few days. So all of our, when you go into our electronic website, the changes are in there very quickly. And I think that's great for the public and for people looking for information in the community.
Yep.
So the next step for this will have to go to the board for public hearing.
Later tonight. It's publicly noticed for later tonight.
Yeah, okay. All right, very good. Any questions from commissioners for Sam at this point?
I have a couple of questions. Sam?
Can you turn the mic on, Tom?
Market price, is the property would be deemed more valuable under the existing zoning, or do you think the change that's being requested would not affect the market price, or might even add to the market price of the property?
I don't know that it'll greatly affect it either way, would be my guess. At least in the short run, because the only thing that we've seen out there is industrial development. Until you get closer to 20, there's not a lot of close comps for anything other than industrial. So I'm hesitant to say how that might affect it, but if we do see some commercial land sales out there, we'll certainly come back to you all and provide you some updates on that regard.
But the general thrust of the purpose for doing this is the village is less concerned about encouraging heavy industrial in this subject property and would like to see more of a mixed use coming in.
That's accurate.
Okay.
Okay.
Have you heard from the other two landowners at all?
Yes, so we have spoken, not with Erickson regarding this specific one. That is subject to an existing village lawsuit. But in regards to Feewee, which is like kind of one of the Foxconn umbrellas, we have spoken with them, and they are in agreement for these changes. So the board wouldn't have to do it out from under them. They've given us their thumbs up.
And this would probably make Erickson's spot a little more non-conforming than it currently is?
Potentially, yes, but seeing how that kind of suit plays out, there is always legal nonconformity statutes that might apply to the property depending on how that all settles. So we'll have to see.
All right, anything else? All right. If there are no other questions, then I would be looking for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance 25-2023, 12910 County Line Road zoning map amendment, ZMA 23-9.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Van Beckham and a second by Mr. Risler for the ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Are there any staff reports or anything you guys want to share with us today?
Just a reminder that the next meeting is next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday. That's the 15th of November at our standard 1 p.m. time.
Okay.
It should be about an hour. We have a pretty light agenda.
Oh, okay, very good. All right. Well, hearing nothing else then, do we have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Move to adjourn. This meeting is adjourned.